Okay, yeah, not quite yet. I think there's like because it's set to start at exactly on the hour. The YouTube hasn't caught up yet. Now, okay, now we're live. So thank you very much for the people who have been following ID24 so far, and also, well, anybody who's joining us just now. So for our next talk, we have, and I'll try not to butcher it, we have Florian Sanders, Aurélie Houssin, and Nathalie Dufour, and they're going to, thank you, and they're going to talk to us about their experience in building a web experience for SNCF. And the presentation is Frenchies, Trains, and Web Accessibility. And with that, I'm going to move out the way, and it's over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So hi. My name is Florian. This is Nathalie, Aurélie, and this is Nathalie. And we're here to talk about trains and accessibility. So I work as an accessibility expert for Access 42, and Aurélie and Nathalie work for the French National Railway Company. Yes, so I'm going to start sharing my screen. All right. Oh, sorry for that. I should be good. So I hope you can hear us just fine, and I hope that the French accent is not too disturbing. We'll do our best. Okay, so we're here today to share with you how SNCF, TER, and Access 42 are working together to provide a more accessible website, and what works really well and the challenges we've faced. So
just a quick presentation of who is SNCF TER. It's a branch in charge of operating and promoting local trains and coaches run by regional councils. It's about 900,000 passengers travel daily on 8,300 trains and coaches, so it's quite a lot of people. And TER, our branch, provides online services through accessible websites, taking into account French web accessibility specific rules and regulations.
Right. So who is Access 42? Access 42 is an accessibility consulting company. We wrote the reference document about accessibility for the French government, and we do audits, technical guidance, accessibility engineering, and trainings. Well, that's pretty typical. And follow us on Twitter, on LinkedIn. We're really nice people, and we like to share stuff about accessibility. Of course, a lot of it is in French, but French is cool, so. And before we start really discussing the subject, I need to introduce the French web accessibility specific rules and how we work in France. So we've got a European requirement, which is to be compliant with the level AA of the WCAG 2. That is for every public website. And so in France, to do that, we drafted a document to help people implement the WCAG. We're not saying that WCAG are bad, but it's just that it's in English, and so for a lot of French people, it's a problem. And also it's a lot of pages, a lot of content, and people needed something that told them exactly what to do and how to do it, and this is the goal of this document. So the document is divided into 13 categories, like, for instance, images, structure, navigation. You can see the English version of this document. There's a link in our presentation, so you will be able to see it when you see our presentation. I'm not going to dwell on it too much because there's a lot to say, but that's not today's subject. Just so you know, we've got each category contains criteria in the shape of questions, and each criterion contains tests in the shape of questions too. That's really convenient for everyone because people can just read the questions, and if they answer with a yes, that means they passed the test, and that means they're compliant. And it's the same logic all over the document. And we always link back to WCAG so that people who want to know what success criterion was described here, you can know by clicking the link. All right.
Our websites are accessible. Why did we do it?
Stupid question. We did it. A few clues for those who are still not in the know. It's about conviction, law, fairness, quality, service, customers need, money, public service. So that's all about, and a lot more, probably.
Our websites are accessible. Which ones? So if we go into a bit more details, accessibility was started within SNCF by Aurélie by making the regional websites accessible. That's why we call her Big Sister, even though she's younger than I am, but there you go. And today, they're certified on accessibility. So they were a bit pioneer because web accessibility within SNCF is quite new. And obviously, I'm little sister because when we decided to go for creating the annual ticket holders accounts and the websites which goes with it, we right from the start decided that it would be accessible. So we followed, we built the house accessible, and that was delivered in January this year. And we will go for the certification by the end of this year. So
what's in your website?
So the website is made or was made to help our annual customers to deal with all kinds of things about their subscription. So the main thing is you can subscribe online, you can pay online, and you also can modify or change aspects of your subscription. If you want to change your payment coordinates, if you want to change your name, if you want to change the itinerary that you're using, if you want to stop your and then come back onto your subscription, that's all available now online.
Okay, how does it work?
It's one technical platform and it's one site. So we've got different regions and regional councils, but it's the same site for all our annual ticket holders.
Okay, who runs it? You?
Yeah, my team. I'm not on my own, but my team runs it, and we're backed up by developers and integrators. And we're working hand in hand, both the marketing team and the IT team. So it makes for something which works quite well at the moment.
So who is it for, your service?
So at the moment, we have about 80,000 annual ticket holders. And from the start of the service, the online service, which was January this year, we've already got 42,000 digital accounts created. Our websites are accessible. How did we do it?
Well, for a start, even if we're in France, we live in the same world as you do. We have ambitious time to market, demanding customers, complex technical frameworks, constrained budgets. Yet, it's been just 1 year from specification to launch with a high level of digital accessibility and full responsive design. So we did it. How did we do it? We have a special timeline, which is very classical one, because you can see there's classical steps from project brief to production launch. What we did is adding novel steps in partnership with Access 42 to help us achieve our goals of accessibility, so training, auditing, and validating. This method was implemented on the Big Sister project, my project, and now it's used for the Little Sister projects, the Natalie's one, and it's been validated. So we share the method with you because we know it works.
It works quite well, and to be honest, it really made my project a lot easier and a lot quicker, because obviously I have to learn step by step. I had the experts all around me, and the built-in method that we used helped me go through that quite quickly and easily, and a lot cheaper as well, because obviously we didn't have to start from scratch.
If you focus on some steps of the timeline, from the project brief, you need to write what you want, exactly what you want. So to ensure agreement and involvement, we specify in the brief that the website must be AA conform, and that we will not take it at face value. So the code will be audited. It's written, so it's an agreement between all the parts. On the budget aspect, it can be difficult because accessibility costs around 20% extra, and it can be considered as a useless extra cost to your budget by financiers, because financiers can see only the houses, and those two houses look exactly the same, so you wouldn't say which one is more expensive than the other one, but maybe one of them has a very nice heating stuff and very low cost heating stuff, and that would be more expensive to buy it. So we consider it as a non-negotiable investment, same as security, referencing, performance, because we think it provides us larger audience to our websites.
It's good service as well. When we say 20% extra, that's because when Aurélie started her project, she already had websites, so she had to start and modify or render accessible something which was already existing. When I started my project, we decided to go from scratch, and we built in the accessibility right from scratch, so the cost is a lot lower than those extra 20%, because it was like a guideline throughout, and it's built in, so it goes quicker and it's a lot cheaper, because everything was designed and built accessible from the start, and it was also full responsive from the start, which is not the case on many of the SNCF websites. So the more you go for it from the start, the cheaper it gets. So it's a non-argument when you say, well, we just went for it and we did it and we decided it was non-negotiable. It was easier as well to go for the non-negotiable because it was not very expensive.
People are very important in the project, so you have to get everybody on board right from the start if you want to succeed. And people are capital key to success. So we make sure that doers are all aware or trained, and if not, we train them. And very often they're not. And Access 42 provides training for us.
Yeah, I think that's really the great thing about the TER project, is that we're here from the start. And so we can train every single actor of the project, whether it is a project manager, a testing team, UX, developers, integrators, webmasters. We have everyone. And that's one of the reasons why it works so well with SNCF TR, I think.
We also now capitalize on colleague experience because it's not one anymore. We've got babies. So we work together with Nathalie on this aspect, and we use external expertise to help us to do it. So.
Yeah. Oops. Okay. Okay. So we said that we trained everyone, and some of you may think, well, if everybody is trained, why do you still take time to audit? That's a good question. And the answer is, well, people can still make mistakes, even though they're trained. And the bigger issue is that we train people, but there is a turnover. And so people change, well, the team changes. And so people we've trained might go, and we end up with people who are not trained yet. So it is essential to not to just trust people, but to also audit at every step of the way. We do it from the start with the graphic design. We try to point out the design issues that might cause issues for accessibility. And then we do it during the development at every step of the way. What we do is we provide the teams with a file on which you find every single non-conformance, every single issue, with a recommendation. So we tell them what's wrong and how to fix it every time. And they got everything on a single file. We also provide them with another file explaining things more in detail. And we also do a lot of meetings to explain the results, because sometimes when you have an audit, you think people are just judging you and they're not going to help you. Well, that's not what we do. We audit and we try to reassure people, because yes, it is normal to have issues on your website if you're not trained. And even if you're trained, it's normal. You don't know everything. You can easily forget stuff. And so, yes, the goal is to reassure the team and to help them every step of the way, really.
What was really interesting in this option is the fact that they tell us where we went wrong, but mostly what was really, really great was the fact that they helped us get the things right afterwards. And that helps because it makes us...
it's a real comfort.
Yeah, it's comfortable, easier, and it points out right where we want to go, and he puts it right. So that's quite easy.
And we try, we use the same file for the first audit and the last audit to check that everything has been corrected. So we might miss something, because we always might miss something, but the chance is really low. And so this is about compliance, but as we always tell our customers, compliance is one thing, accessibility is another thing. You can be compliant, but it doesn't mean that you're accessible. It is not enough. You need to take into account the user feedback, and that's what you do, I think.
Yeah, we like user feedback. We need user feedback. So we work closely with associations of people with disabilities, and we invite them sometimes for testing sessions and feedback. As for any classical user testing, feedback is taken into account when special needs don't deteriorate over special needs, and when budget and timing allow it, which is not always the case. You need to be watchful, because our panel is never really representative. It depends a lot on assistive technology expertise of the panel and web browsing expertise. So compliance is not enough. Do not forget that you need to be user-centric.
Yeah, but do not forget compliance, because you cannot just do the user feedback. You also need the compliance to make sure that you've got a strong basis, and then you can enhance the basis with user feedback. I think that's what you're doing.
Exactly. it's compliance first.
Yeah.
And feedback, user feedback as a complement.
Yeah.
Exactly. We also go beyond compliance. We try to provide services to people with special needs. As an example, we have a sign language and live chat service allowing deaf and mute customers to access to our call centers as any other customers does, which is really appreciated by our associations of people with disabilities.
Yeah, I think it's really great because it's not in the scope of the complaints actually, but it chose to do it anyway, even though it's quite a cost. Really, it costs.
It's not that expensive, and it's just trying to provide services to all of us.
Yeah,
and it's very important for us.
It's great.
Easy. We made quite a few challenges.
All right. The first challenge, I think, was the corporate style guide versus the contrasts. The style guide of SNCF tells you to use mainly white as background. But out of the 11 colors that you have available, 6 of them may cause issues when used with a white background. 3 of them can only be used with large texts. And the 3 others cannot be used ever with a white background. So this leaves you with 2 purples and 2 reds, which is not a lot to build a website. So, well, you've got 3 ways to meet compliance. You can, of course, only use the 4 colors, but that wouldn't be the best idea. It's going to send the message that accessibility is ugly, and that's an issue, and sad, and that you can't do anything for if you're making an accessible website. That's not really an option, I think. You can use the colors you want and implement a contrast switcher, which is something that a lot of websites tend to do nowadays. But you can also use all the colors and darken the colors that cause some issues.
We didn't want the contrast switcher because we have a lot of elders on our websites, and we want to make it easy for them to access to the information. So we choose dissidents. We darkened some of the colors, and we're French after all. So
you just ignored the side guide.
No, we didn't ignore them.
You just deviated from it a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Another issue was the web content producers. Well, it's a typical issue.
Yeah.
Because you have so many.
Well, we have almost 200 people publishing contents on the TER websites, which is quite a lot. They publish text, image, video. 40 of them are identified as webmaster, and 150 are publishing occasionally on limited areas of the website.
Yeah.
So we couldn't train everyone. It's a question of time and budget. So we focused on webmasters for the training.
Okay, and you also set up the tools, the publishing tools.
Yes, we try to make it easy for the webmasters to meet compliance.
Yeah.
As an example, the CMS check when the webmaster try to publish an image, if it needs an alternative or not.
Yeah. So basically, the tool asks the webmaster whether it's a decorative image, whether it brings information or not.
Yeah. And
if the user says it brings information, then he needs to fill the alternative.
Exactly.
And if not, then the alternative is going to be empty.
Exactly. It's a kind of reminder, because they know they have to do it. But when they do it
yeah, they might do
in
it
a
wrong.
rush, and they might forget. So it's a kind of reminder, which is very important. And we also provide editorial guidelines, taking into account accessibility.
Yeah, so you've included accessibility into the editorial guidelines, actually. Yeah.
As a good way to write on the web.
Yeah.
It's digital writing.
Okay, so it's not just about accessibility, it's about many stuff. Okay, and the last challenge
not least.
Yeah, the last not least challenge that we faced was documents. And I think that's really typical. Every time I tell a customer that, yes, documents also need to be made accessible, well, the reaction is just like in the picture. This is way too much. It's going to be really difficult because sometimes you have to review your process of production, but it might be expensive because you might have, I don't know, a few hundreds of documents to make accessible. So one document is never a problem, but when you have a huge quantity of that is a problem.
And sometimes it's less the cost than the multiple subjects.
Yeah.
Which makes it awkward and a bit more complicated to deal with.
Yeah. And so the answer to that is, let's be practical. Let's make a list of the different types of documents that we have, and let's answer the main questions that will help us define a priority depending on the user impact and the feasibility. The first question is, which format? Well, usually the answer is PDF. It's always PDF, almost always, and it's not always an issue, but very often it's an issue. What information does the document bring is really important because it will help you find whether you have an alternative already present on the website or not, by who it is produced, whether it's produced directly from one member of your team, or if it's a subcontractor or something like that, and how it is produced, because we know that the source format is really important when it comes to finding the solution, because we know that making a PDF accessible from a Word document is fairly easy, but from an InDesign document, it's a little bit more complicated. And the last answer is, do we already have an alternative? Because sometimes you already do, and so it doesn't mean you don't have to make the document accessible, but it might not be the priority to make it accessible. So let's use real cases.
We have a nice example, I think.
Yeah.
You probably already have in hand this kind of documents, and you already have difficulties to read it, even if you're a good reader. And we can't avoid those documents on our websites because customers ask for them, and they existed since the birth of trains a few years ago. So we have to deal with them, and the solution is not easy to find.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, well, we asked ourselves the question, so which format is it?
Well, it's PDF with rich tables inside.
Yeah, and I would say that's a fairly important point, because yes, we can make a PDF accessible, but we know that if there are complex tables inside the PDF, the result, yes, it's going to be compliant, but it might not be really usable.
Readable.
Yeah, that's it. What information does the document give?
Well, it's all French trains timetables, so it's hundreds of them, and they are updated every day.
And it's an important information for the customer.
Yeah, very important.
Produced by who?
Various people all over the country. We don't even know all of them.
Yeah, so the source is not even clearly identified. So if you wanted to make them produce something accessible, it would be really tough because you don't know who to ask.
It's a project by itself.
Yeah. What is the source format for
Excel.
that? Yeah, all right. And so at the end of these questions, we asked ourselves whether there was already an alternative or not. And thing is, there is already an alternative, which is even better than the document itself. It's the search engine on the website.
Yeah. The search, well, the website is accessible, and we have a search engine to look for timetables, live traffic. So it's even better than the printed reading paper.
Yeah.
So you're sure you get the right time.
Yeah, it's updated live, so that's
exactly.
Yeah.
And you can also call the call center. If you want to have a special time and a special time.
Yeah, that means that even if you're offline, even if you don't have any access to the internet, you can still call the center and have the information. So I think it covers every single case that we have.
We think so.
So you also have the call center for deaf people, deaf and mute people. So you really have the whole scope, I think. Okay, so this one was fairly easy, I'd say, in the end, because we already had an alternative and because we already had done everything right, I think, before.
Yes, and we can keep those magnificent documents on our website.
Yeah. The second case
it's got to do with when dealing with subscriptions and annual tickets. We tend to write or to talk to our customers a lot. And one of the formats that we're using is email or letters, and they're pre-formatted letters. And most of them are PDF as well.
Okay, so the format is PDF.
Yeah.
These are letters. What's also interesting, I think, is these are documents that existed before the website was built.
Yeah, when I said that it's easier when you build a house accessible from the start, there's always a little exception. And the letters, they were pre-formatted right from the start of the system. And they're in existence and they're quite complicated to set. So when we went accessible on the website, we kept that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but that's the way it did.
So what information do they give? Well, you said it, I think.
When people ask us to change something on their subscription, we tend to, we tell them that we've taken into account the change we've asked for, what date will be implemented on, but it's also present within the accounts now. So it's more of a backup reminder that we've done what they've asked us to do and when it's going to be implemented, rather than an exception. It's on top of everything else.
Yeah, it's a reminder. Really.
Yeah, it's a reminder. So, but all the information is within the personal account of the customer.
All right. By who? Who produces these documents?
It's an automatic system. So we put in all the templates with the contents, and based on that, it all went. It's generated automatically.
Okay. And so, you've got templates. You've got the fact that it's generated automatically can be either a good thing or a bad thing. The thing is, when we studied the documents, the result was that these documents were not accessible, actually. And so that meant that the generator was not producing accessible content, and that you needed to work on the generator. Of course, you could have worked on the result of the generator, but that would be the worst solution, I think, to patch the results. You have to patch what generates, but it costs a lot, I think.
It's the timing more than the cost, actually.
Yeah, okay.
The team is quite small. There's 6 of us working on this kind of project. And at the moment, it's quite complicated to turn all the templates within.
It would be a whole other project inside a project.
So we're trying to convert, to render accessible those who are really, really needed to be accessible on top of what we've got in the account. And then we'll see if we've got a further solution.
Yeah.
But not this year.
Yeah. So the solution we found to, like, at least right now, we are trying to make accessible emails instead of sending the PDF by email. Just put the content within the email, but it still represents quite some work because you have to go through every single PDF and prepare the emails, etc. So it's a whole.
So work in progress.
That's
We're not giving up. It's just it's going to take a bit more time than we thought it would.
Yeah. All right.
So some challenges, but we did it, and we keep doing it, and
we're quite proud of it.
We are proud, and we are still motivated. And within the group, TER is now the leading force of expertise on web accessibility. So we are also proud of this thing. We started small with small websites. Only providing train departure times, itinerary, and price information. Then we launched last year the train tickets online purchasing, accessible also. And now the project we just detail, the customer account and after-sale service. The big sister is already certified. And the little sister is soon to be certified at the end of the year.
Once we've dealt with the PDFs, we'll go for the audits. Yeah.
And it's now a close partnership with Access 42. It's been 3 years now. We're working together.
Yeah.
So we've got our habits, and
I think it works quite well.
It works quite well. We wouldn't be here today if it didn't. And so now we are lobbying. We are spreading the word, sharing expertise within the French group. We are providing ready-to-use guidelines to our colleagues to make it easier for them. And that's why we're here also today, to spread the word, to say it's possible, we can make it, and it's not that expensive, and it's not that difficult.
Yeah, I think it's working because now we, Access 42, are working with other branches of SNCF. Well, we were already a little bit working with them too, but
it's spreading
more and more, like more.
Exactly.
Yeah, and with the same methods. So that's really interesting, I think. All right.
Watch out. There's still some points to be careful about. The job's never done. So it's not we've done it, finished, go to something else. No, it's a never-ending story because websites tend to be modified to get in new functionalities. And when you do that, you change things, you move things, you do it with other people, and sometimes accessible is not so accessible at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So you've got to be on the watch out for that all the time to make sure that when you change something, you go for it with accessibility in mind. And to be sure, not to forget, you keep auditing your system from time to time to maintain accessibility. And that's the way we've done it. And it saved us quite a bit of trouble because we audited something which was supposed to be accessible. We discovered that corrections hadn't been made properly. So the fact that we went back to auditing from time to time enabled us to realize that we had a problem and how to solve it.
On a very important page, which is the payment page. So as an online ticket buying service website, the online page, payment page is quite important.
Yeah, Well, the thing is, we trusted that it was corrected. We thought that it was done, and
it wasn't.
It wasn't really well done. So that's
So that's one thing. And then the other thing Aurélie pointed out earlier is, especially on her project, there are hundreds of people involved. So you've got to keep track of new people coming in, and you've got to give them the training and the talk so that they know that we're talking accessibility and that it's non-negotiable and they've got to deal with it. So that's sometimes the hardest part, keep track of new people.
Yeah.
But when you do it, you make everybody proud of what they accomplished, which is maybe the conclusion. We are proud. It's fun. It's not only difficult. It's not only expertise. It's not only technique. It's also providing a service you are proud of.
Yeah, and I think for Accessibility too, it's really great working on this project because we're not frustrated because we're here from the start and we see it every step of the way. We don't, sometimes we do audits and we arrive and it's already too late. Everything has been developed and we tell people, well, you have to do it over because it's all wrong. And that's not the case here, and that's really enjoyable for us. So yes, I think we've been quite fast. We still have a few minutes, I think. I shouldn't do that.
Any question?
Right. Well, first of all, thank you very much. It was a very, very interesting presentation, and it hit a lot of, I think, really important themes. Certainly, the difference between being compliant and actually real-world accessibility is something that, particularly when people focus purely on check boxes and making sure that they tick all the WCAG check boxes, that's often an aspect that's forgotten. And also the reinforcement from your experience that if you integrate accessibility from the start in a project rather than something that needs to just be done last minute, that the results will be better. So that was really great to hear that reinforced in your presentation. Now, I've looked over Twitter during the presentation, and I don't think there have been any questions, but I would like to shout out quickly and say thank you to, I think, one of your colleagues, Sylvie Duchateau, and I've just blatantly retweeted almost everything she said. She pulled out choice quotes from your talk. So that saved me writing it, so that was really good. Apart from that, I don't think there's any questions, but as ever, we have the Twitter details for you on our website. So I'm sure if people have any follow-up questions, they can just reach out to you. And apart from that, once again, thank you very much for taking part.
Thank you.
For everybody else on the ID24 stream, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back on the hour with our next presentation. So thank you very much.
Cheers, bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.